Around 4 to 5,000 years ago, an ancient group of people marched from Central Asia down the mountain corridor into South Asia. They were a nomadic and aggressive people armed with horse chariots and iron blade weapons. They were the mythic Aryans. The inhabitants of South Asia at the time were a peaceful people in contrast who simply lived off their own land. They worshipped the earth, their goddess, for sustaining them with her fertility. The Dravidian populace was a feminine culture, more concerned with harmony than war. But what happened when these two met is a theme you can find throughout history: a masculine, warlike civilization overcoming the more passive feminine. Despite this still being a controversial topic, the scientific studies themselves are pretty clear, and they have been for some time. If you take any one South Asian person and you look into their chromosomes, you'll find two basic clusters of genes. In other words, they're all descendant from two distinct cultures. You might have used the terms Aryan and Dravidian, but geneticists are more likely to call them ANI and ASI. But it's clear that some kind of invasion or gene migration did indeed take place. So what actually happened in detail? Several thousands of years ago, the entire subcontinent was populated by a group of hunter-gatherers which geneticists call AASI, vaguely related to Andaman Islands. Near the northwestern region, these same people built a great civilization called the Indus Valley, and there was also some gene flow with neighboring Iranian agriculturalists. But the resulting genetic makeup gave us the people of the Indus Valley civilization, which would loosely correspond to what most people call the Dravidians. But as mentioned before, these were not a warlike people. Their real contributions were spiritual in nature, and there's a lot of evidence to say that esoteric practices such as yoga actually developed here. The masculine and nomadic Aryan culture, on the other hand, was originally from a region just north of the Caucasus Mountains, the Eurasian steppe. Now these same people spread west into Europe, but also east into Central Asia, and being geared for war, their weapons and chariots were highly advanced. From their home in Central Asia, they swept down and overcame the Indus Valley pretty easily. What happened then is twofold. Firstly, they mixed with the indigenous inhabitants of the valley. Secondly, a substantial number of the valley people migrated south, and this is what gave rise to the two ancestral populations of ANI and ASI. What happened subsequently is a thorough mixing to the extent that every individual in the region had a significant mixture of both ASI and ANI in their own unique genetic makeup. The unique proportion of each individual just depended on geographical location as well as other factors, but in principle it was the same. The idea of the Aryan invasion was first proposed by the British, and people suspected, and still do, that it was a tactic to divide and rule, but it was really just a sound observation. But what the British anthropologists did not understand was the esoteric meaning behind it. So what was that? The two disparate cultures, Aryan and Dravidian, actually represent principles. This was vaguely acknowledged by some thinkers, but the masculine or yang culture, overcoming the feminine yin culture, is very symbolic of our times. There are many examples. Just think of the Spanish conquistadors or the Dutch invasion of South Africa, to name just two. That's the paradigm of the world today, and history generally repeats itself. But while this seems unbalanced, it's actually an opportunity. The real secret of our times is the ability to harmonize the two, to unite the yin and the yang energy, to let these energies which are now disparate, to synergize with each other. This is really the esoteric task at hand, and it's something that can only happen within each individual. This is why it's so significant that every person has both principles present in their genetic makeup, giving them the opportunity to be an integrated individual. The esoteric yin and yang cultures mixing is to find harmony. This remains the task of society today, but most importantly, it remains the task of the individual today.
Subscribe to Infognostica to get regular updates to enlighten you and your family. Join our community while you're here. Until next time, Padawans.